We're almost finished with group policies. We have one more lesson on configuring group policy preferences. I don't know if you've noticed as we've gone through the demonstrations, there's always been an option underneath policies called preferences, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to provide you an introduction, and then we're going to look at how to configure some of the common desktop preferences. One of the main reasons to use preferences over policies, it allows you to apply some of the common desktop settings without having to worry about scripting. Remember previously we talked about we can use VB script or we can use PowerShell scripts to apply log on and log off scripts or startup and shutdown scripts. We can use preferences to apply those common desktop settings. Now there are a few other differences here. As you can see, GPO settings are strictly enforced. GPOs normally disable an area of a user interface. A preference can't disable a portion of a desktop like we can with the GPO. GPOs automatically refresh, but preference refreshes can be configured to never refresh, applied only once, or periodically refresh. So they're not automatic like GPOs are. When we're working with preferences, we have 4 different tasks that we can perform. We can create a new one. We can replace an existing one. Maybe we've redone this preference that we have out there and we have all new options. We can replace that existing preference. We can update an existing preference if we've made some minor tweaks to a preference that we already have out there. And at some point you may want to toast an existing preference setting. We can do that as well. So those are some of the options that we have available to us as we're working with preferences. In addition, we have these categories of settings that we can work with: applications, registry settings, environment settings, shortcuts, files and folders, drive maps, and network shares. And there are several control panel settings, including data sources, devices, folder options, internet settings, scheduled tasks, all sorts of options within control panel. It has its own category, in fact. And like GPOs, these preference settings are available in both user and computer configuration nodes, but unlike GPOs, preference settings are not available if you're working with the local group policy editor. And I pulled out a few of these so you'll have an idea of what to expect when you get in there. And our first one is printer preferences. It's available in both the user and computer configuration node, and it's available within the control panel settings folder. And we have a ton of options within the control panel settings, as we're going to see shortly. Another one is the power options. This is also available under both user and computer configuration nodes, and you'll also find this one underneath the control panel settings. And our third one is custom registry preferences. This is extremely powerful. Just imagine we can actually go in and modify the registry applicable to both the user and computer configuration. And we have a few different ways we can do this. We can add a registry item, which is simply going to add a specific registry to your Hive and key. Add a collection item, which is going to group a collection of registry items and add them all at once. Or if we want to get walkthrough, we can run a registry wizard, which is going to allow you to choose your target computer and then configure the settings of the registry for that target computer. When we're working with control panel settings, because I said we have a ton of options within there, the registry-based tasks associated with the user configuration node are shown here. We have our data sources, folder options, power options, local users and groups, start menu, devices, network options, printers, regional options, and internet settings. And those are all available from within the user configuration node. When I go into the computer configuration mode, I'm also going to have the scheduled tasks and services options. You're going to notice as we work through these control panel preferences, not all of those settings are configurable. If you see a red dashed line, that means I can't configure that particular setting. If you see a green solid line, it means I can configure that setting. And at this point, we've talked about it at a container level, but very similar to the GPO filtering, where I could go in and specify a GPO for an object, a user, computer, group, whatever it may be. We can use what's called item level targeting to control the granularity of these preferences. Let's step out to our live image and explore these group policy preferences. So here we are in the GPMC. We're going to go to the MTP Good Stuff, right click and go into the GPME, the editor. And you see we have under computer configuration policies, which we've spent some time in, as well as user configuration, which also has policies. And notice they both have preferences. So if I expand on preferences under computer, Windows settings and control panel settings. I'll do the same under user, same 2 options. Let's expand under computer Windows settings. You'll see that we have these 7 items here under Windows settings for computer, Windows settings for the user, we have these 8 items here. So there's a little bit of a difference between what settings within each of these categories. Let me collapse these two. Let's go to the control panel settings for each. And you'll see, again, we have somewhat of a different experience depending on whether you're under user or computer. I'm going to go ahead and collapse computer so it's not so busy up here. And we're going to go to power options on user, and we're going to right click, and we're going to choose new, and it's going to give me options based on what I'm trying to configure. So obviously you're not going to see these options if you're trying to configure folder options. So we're going to go power plan at least Windows 7. And then here's my actions. I told you we can do a create, a replace, an update, or delete. So we're going to go ahead and do a create. And then let's make this simple. Let's go into sleep mode, and we're going to say sleep after. Notice we have that green line. That means it's configurable. So we'll click on that. We'll say sleep after 5 minutes on battery. And then when it's plugged in, we'll say sleep after 10 minutes. I'm not going to save this anyways because I don't want to mess anything up on my DC here and my machine attached to it. And also this particular one also has options for balanced, high performance, or power saver. These are the same settings we'd see inside of the control panel. Notice also we have this common tab here. This is where I have 5 options that I can configure. And the first one indicates if an error does occur, all the preferences configured in the GPO are not processed. The next one is to determine what logged on user security context that this preference is going to be associated with. The third one is remove the item when it's no longer applied. Ironically, the preferences continue to apply even after the preference item is removed. Apply once and do not reapply. This is going to override the default GPO refresh behavior. And then as we talked about, we have the item level targeting. Let's go ahead and peek at that one. I'm going to click on that. Go to targeting. And we're going to say on the left-hand side, new item. And let's go with operating system. Windows 10 operating system. So we're actually applying filtering as to when this preference will be applied. Any addition, any release, any computer role. I'll go ahead and do an OK. And then again, I would do an OK. And now we've created a power plan using the power option within the control panel settings of the preferences of the user configuration mode of the group policy management editor, which is a subset of the group policy management console. So these are the steps regarding preferences and how we use preferences and configure preferences from inside of GPMC.